What's up, friends of YouTube? Derek Van Diest here with Zaandam Music. Welcome back to another episode of How I Made This Beat. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the beat Nirvana. So let's dive right in. Alright, so I'm going to play the final MP3 version, which is this first layer here. Because if I don't, it's going to glitch because of the CPU performance is going to go a little bit too high. And the reason being is because I have the OBS recording software at the same time, so it's basically the same thing. Let's go ahead and play the final version. Alright guys, so that's the beat, and it's a very simple beat. As you can see here, I barely used any instruments. I used an 808, a drum kit, guitar. This is not a bell, I just named it a bell I'll explain it later. But just this is one sound, the pad sound, the riser, and the beat tag. That's all it is. So I'm going to show you exactly my thought process on how I made this beat from the beginning. So the way that I started this beat, I actually got a sample pack from Nick Myra, and I love Nick Myra's sample packs, so I went ahead and got the Gasolina 2 kit. And from that kit, I was playing around with the different sample stems, and I found one that I liked. It was this one here, Prada Playground, and this is what the sample sounds like, the original. Alright, so you can see it sounds kind of similar to the beat that I just showed you. So what I did was I got this sample, dragged it into the window here, and I did my secret sauce technique here that I'm sharing with you guys. I always try transposing it down 6 and tuning it up 6. That's like the first thing I do. For some reason, this always works out really nicely for me. So let's hear what that sounds like. I'm gonna go ahead and solo that. Okay, let me make sure that that's what I did. So I'm going back to the guitar, and yep, I transposed it down 6, up 6. So as you can see, it sounds a lot different now than what it used to. So that's the first thing I did. And it still sounds a little different because I did a lot of mixing to the guitar, and I'll explain that later on. But that's basically what I did. I got that same sample and I changed the tuning of it. All right, so let me remove that. Okay, so that's what I did for the guitar and for the pad. So thankfully this sample pack, the Gasolina sample pack, it comes with the stems. So I don't have to use that master. There was a few instruments there that I didn't want to include. So I took the individual stems. For example, let's hear this one. So I took that one, and let's hear this one. And I took that one, just those two. Let's hear what this one was. Hold up. Actually, I used all the stems. All right, so one of them is the guitar, one of them's the pad, and the other one is a second guitar. As you can see here, I have two patterns. So pattern 1 and pattern 2, they look different, the wave files. This one's a little bit fuller than this one. So those are the two different stems, and I put them together to switch it up in the hook section. And I'll explain the arrangement later on. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue explaining how I produce this. So after I got the stem I showed you and I broke it apart, I put it here. This is the pad sound. I'm gonna solo the pad here. And I think it's really smooth, so I decided to use this as the intro, just to start building it up for the track. And I also put it at the beginning of the verse as well, because I felt like it had the lowest energy, so it'll help build the track up as we go. So I'll get into the arrangement later on. Let's start with all the instruments that I used. So I used for the 808, I used the one I believe I used the one I always use, which is I used an instance of Maschine with Contact. And yeah, I used the Trap Sinatra 808 Cooking Up. This is my favorite 808. Okay, for the drums, this is interesting. For the drums, I went to another sample pack. So I have XXL Audio Abstract Trap. And within this sample pack, there's a construction kit. And I used one of them. I don't remember which one. Oh, it'll tell me here, actually. I used Angels. And I basically, all I did was I copied and pasted the drums here. So let's hear what they sound like. Drums 1. And this is drums 2. All right, so as I was producing this beat, I had the master tuned like I showed you earlier, and I said, why not put some drums in there just to, you know, build up the beat a little bit. So I went ahead and copied and pasted the drums in there, and it actually sounded really nice, so I decided to keep it in there. And I know what you guys are thinking right now, like, wow, you just copied and pasted somebody else's stuff. But a lot of producers actually do that. This is a 100% royalty-free sample pack, which means I can use all of these WAV files for my production with 100% royalty-free. So I'm allowed to do that. And I never said I was a musician, okay? I don't know how to play the drums. I'm a producer. So at the end of the day, the listener isn't going to be able to tell, oh, this producer copied a drum kit, you know? So anyways, that's a little gem for beginning producers out there. So it sounded good. I decided to keep it. I didn't want to impress anyone, so it sounds good. I'm going to keep it. This is what it sounds like with just the drums and the guitar. So as I heard this, I'm like, wow, this is awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and keep that. So I decided to use that section for the hook. Here's the switch up with the guitar, how the melody changes. And as we move into the verse, I use the second drum. Alright, so that was my little secret there for the drums. So I showed you how I got this guitar sound. Let me show you about the bell. For the bell, I used an instance of Omnisphere, and I used the Mega Magic Dreams kit, and I used Castle Walls EP Wet. So I did a lot of browsing. I spent probably 45 minutes to an hour, you know, trying to find the perfect sound to complement the guitar. And I came up with this one here, so let's solo it and hear what it sounds like. So let's hear what that sounds like with the pad. So I really like how smooth that was, and I felt it would be a great introduction. So I did program that through MIDI, and then I bounced it. So that was, and it's not a bell sound, okay? I titled it bell because I didn't know what to call it, but it's clearly not a bell sound. All right, so moving on. I used that pad sample and I transposed it like I showed you earlier. This is one of the stems. And for the riser, I used the Razer VST, and I used the complex noise sweep preset. And I'll show you what the riser sounds like here. All right, and that's actually supposed to have some reverb, but I don't have it turned on right now. So the next thing is the beat tag, which I always use. I put it on a sample 1. It's the beat tag that I always use for all my projects.
Zaandam music.
All right, and those are all the instruments that I used. Very simple beat. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the arrangement. In the arrangement, I have an intro, hook, verse, outro. Standard rap tune here. The whole thing is about somewhere around 3 minutes, a little under 3 minutes. And the beat is in the tempo of 143. And it's in, let me check what key it's in. A sharp minor, but let me double check. Yeah. A sharp minor, that's right. All right, I'll get into the mix in a little bit. So one thing I wanted to talk about before I forget, this drum kit was supposed to be in the BPM of 120, and I'm playing it at 143, so it's not exactly the same. It's playing at a faster rate. Also, another thing to notice, the Nick Myra sample, if I go back to it here, it's at 129 BPM, so I actually sped it up to 143, so it sounds a lot different. So little things like that help a lot with making it unique. So, all right, let's see here. For the intro, I kind of explained what I did. I started building it up using the pads and the bell. Then I brought in the guitar, introduced it here in the intro. And then once the hook dropped, I put the whole drum kit and the 808 as well. Let's see, yeah, and you know, for the verse, I brought back the bell, brought back the pad, and the verse and the hook are all the same, exactly the same as you can see here. Hook, pattern 2, pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 1. So it's really just the same thing. It's a simple beat, like I said, and the reason, like my thought behind that was it has to be simple because a rap artist needs a lot of room to do their thing. You know, if I'm going in with multiple instruments, let's say I wanted to add a flute or I wanted to add another synth bass into it, yeah, it's going to sound really cool, but it's going to make the rapper's job a lot harder. So I wanted to keep it nice and simple and easy for them to do their job. For the 808, before I forget, I wanted to explain what I did. I used the Maschine here, as you can see, and all I did was I matched the sounds to the kick from the drum kit, and that's it. And I just played the keys that sounded the best to me. And also another thing to look at for beginning producers, if you put your hand on the sub, on the part you can feel the vibration as the 808's playing, and you really want it to have a smooth vibration, something that you feel is going to sound good in a car. So lucky for me, I have a sub in my car, and I was able to figure out which frequency sounds best in the car. So that's kind of an important aspect to think about when working with 808s. Okay, so where did I leave off? The arrangement. So, you know, the riser, all I did was put it right before the transition to each part. And that's it. Right before each part, there's going to be that same riser. And then the beat tag was only one time in the beginning. Now, I did do an automation that I'll explain at the very end. This was a tape stop, a very simple tape stop automation throughout and at the very end. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the mix. So for the mix, I'm going to turn on all my stuff here because I'm going to remove this track so we don't get confused. Unfortunately, the CPU does spike, so I have to be careful. Let's start with the 808. For the 808, I will show you here soloed what it sounds like. This is what the 808 sounds like. Alright, so for the 808, I have it routed to the bass bus channel. It's peaking at -12 dB. I started with a decapitator, and I switched it to the P style, and I rose the drive a little bit and played around with the output. Then I put a FabFilter Pro Q with the standard low cut and high cut. And I'd learned recently that the equalizer should be at the very bottom so that everything gets affected by it. So I made the mistake there of not having it at the bottom. Alright, so the last thing I did was a compressor, and this is what it looks like. It's a side chain to the kick, to the drums. And that's everything for the 808. So let's move on to the drums now. Let me just turn that off. Turn on the drums. Alright, and I'm going to solo the drums here for you guys. Alright, so those drums are peaking at -18. They're routed to the drum bus channel. I have it side chained to the 808. I started with a virtual mix rack. Pull it up here for you guys. I started with an FGS, and I rose the highs a little bit, rose the mids a little bit, and the low end a little bit as well. And I did this, all this was calculated. I played around with it until I got it just right. I added some thickness here with Revival and a little bit of shimmer as well. Then I added the FabFilter Pro Q low cut, standard low cut here for the drums, to give the 808 some more room. And that's it for the drums, so let's move on to the guitar. For the guitar, I have it routed to the instrument bus channel. I'm going to solo it here for you guys. Alright, so I apologize for the crackling. There's really nothing I can do about that. And the reason for the crackling is because, as you can tell here, I used 6 effects on this one instrument. So I did a lot of work on this guitar. I wanted it to sound really nice. So I'm going to break it down piece by piece here. First thing I did, I added a Blue Cat's Destructor, and this is the one that's causing the problems. This is a very CPU intensive mix tool here. I used the old time jazz setting. I played around with some of it. It took me a very long time to get it just right. Next, I added a sonic maximizer with the guitar acoustic setting, and this just blew my mind how nice the guitar sounded after this effect. Alright, so after that, I added an auto filter, and I was being very experimental at the time. I decided to add this filter, which is really cool. It just goes up and down. And let's see if I can show you guys without the crackling. I'm going to turn off Blue Cat's Destructor. Maybe that'll make a difference. See, as you can tell, it's going up and down. But anyways, it crackles, so I can't do anything about that. So after the auto filter, I added a virtual mix rack because I felt like it needed some more EQing. A lot more EQing because I did quite a bit here. I did a custom series EQ. I took down the low end all the way down. I made some adjustments here by ear. Then I added a second EQ here, a stronger EQ, and I rose the mid and the low end a little bit. Not really the low end, more into like 100, 115 around there. So just after the low end. And let's see here, tiny little bit of shimmer and a little bit of thickness. So I kind of overkilled this instrument, but I really like the way it turned out. After that, I added the standard FabFilter Pro Q low cut. This is what it looks like. And I then finished it off with an Ozone 8 imager because I felt like it needed some more multi-band depth in the imaging. So I used that preset. And then I routed an Echo Boy, which I'll show you guys later on. And that's it for the guitar. And it's peaking around negative 22.3. Now, the bell sound I played for you guys earlier, I'll do it real quick. Alright, so anyways, for this one, I used the exact same auto filter effect. I used the same exact maximizer as well. Actually, I used a different preset. I used the piano electric preset. And I just love this sonic maximizer because the second time I used it, it was incredible what it did to the sound. Alright, so... And I also routed the same Echo Boy. Both of these are on the instrument bus channel. So this is the bell. Basically, for the beginners out there, this is the MIDI version. See the keyboard here? This is the one that I played using the keyboard. Then I bounced it with the effects to the wave version, which is this one here, so that it has all the effects without me having to have them on. All right. Anyways, let's move on. So here's the pad. I'm going to solo it here for you guys. So as you can see, it crackles when I have Blue Cat's Destructor on, but as soon as I turn it off, it gets better. So it's a very CPU intensive program. So I used another Blue Cat's here, and I'm gonna pull it up here. Same effect, the old time jazz. I just copied and pasted the effect. Actually, I think I copied and pasted all of the effects. I have the same sonic maximizer with guitar acoustic. Let me check the virtual mix rack. I only used one EQ, so I dropped the second EQ on this one. Tiny little bit of shimmer and thickness. And I put another imager as well, which I believe was a copy and paste. Actually, no, this was a subtle detail. I added just a little subtle detail here at the high end. So I added an Echo Boy as well to that. And that's all of it. That's also on the instrument bus channel. Even though this is a pad and it should be on the pad bus channel, for whatever reason at the time, I put it in the instrument bus channel. And it just sounded good to me, so I kept it on there. For the riser, I actually don't have anything on the riser. I don't usually put any effects on my riser. For the beat tag, I guess I forgot to put the auto tune on it. But it's no big deal because it was still in key. So I should have added some effects to it, but I didn't, which is no big deal. And alright, let me show you the reverbs that I used. If you guys watch my videos, you know exactly what reverbs I use for all my projects. You know, Valhalla Vintage Verb drum plate. I use Valhalla Vintage Verb Very Nice Hall. And I also use my favorite preset from Altiverb 7. Takes a little while to load. The West Sarm Studios preset. So I use the same reverbs for all my projects because I kind of want the reverb to be associated with my production. So when people hear my beats, when it comes to the reverb, they associate it more with my production. They're like, oh, that sounds like a Zaandam music type beat. And I believe the reverb really helps with that because it's basically the glue that glues all the instruments together. It's the room environment that you're playing your instruments in, and that plays a big role in the vibe as well. All right, so those are the reverbs that I use. I didn't use Pan Man for this project. I did use the Echo Boy. And here's the Echo Boy I used. It's ambient echoes. And I adjusted the output. No, I adjusted something on here. I can't remember. But I really liked the way this sounded on all my instruments. I had to make sure that it sounded good on all of the ones that I put it on. So let's see here. I put it on the guitar, the bell, and the pad. So let's go on to the bus channels. I did basically nothing to the bus channels. I put a fab filter here. Let's see what I did. Oh yeah, that's right. Multiband compressor. I did a punch wide love, and it made the drums stand out a little more. And let's see. Okay, now for the tape stop. Before I get to the tape stop, because that's the automation, I'm going to leave that for the end. Here's what I put on the very last part here, the master. I have my standard ozonate equalizer. And I'll explain here. I have a brick wall and another brick wall up here. The reason I do this is because I don't, as humans, we can't hear the hertz underneath 30 hertz. Yet dogs can hear them. And also above 18, I think we can. I think children can hear higher than this. But it really annoys dogs if you have frequencies that go over this. It's kind of like super high pitched. And I want to give a shout out to BusyWorks Beats because I learned this technique from him. He has a tutorial on BusyWorks Beats YouTube channel and his website where he goes into detail about how important it is to have a brick wall on both of these sections. So the next thing I have is my standard Hornet song key. This is one of my favorite tools because it tells me what key the beat is in. And the last thing I have is a sample grabber, which is for a different program. It's my frequency analyzer. All right, so let's go on to the automation now. I used a KHS tape stop. And this is, if you guys have seen my previous videos, I've used the same tape stop. And I basically play around with these three options only, just these three knobs: the start time, stop time, and the curve. So I'll show you how the effect sounds like. I decided to put it at the end of the verse as a transition to the hook. So let's hear what that sounds like. Oh, that's weird. It didn't play. So let's figure out why. I didn't have it on. So let's try that one more time. So as you can see, it just drops. And I'll show you here again at the end. This one's a little bit longer, a little bit more of a dip here. So it just kind of finishes the beat nicely, in my opinion. So I'll show you here what it sounds like. So it gives that tape stop effect at the end. So let's see what else. I think that's pretty much it. I covered everything in the mix. And yeah, like I said earlier, this is a really simple beat, and I'm just waiting for that rapper to get in there, do his magic or her magic. And yeah, I hope you guys learned something here today. And thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. And also thank you everybody who liked my status on Facebook. I got over 50 likes, so therefore I decided to make the video. And if you guys keep on supporting me like that, I'll continue to make these videos. So thank you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.